Today, I'm going to crack open this Bleacher Bum Blonde Ale from a brewery here in Chicago in honor of the announcement that baseball is coming back. I don't know about you, but I am super excited to see something sports related coming back. It's getting a little bit old watching underwater basket weaving, all sorts of goofy stuff on ESPN The Ocho. So I'm excited to see that the baseball's coming back. I just saw yesterday that the Cubs open on July 24th, which I'm excited about. Big Cubs fan. Living here in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. I haven't always been a Cubs fan. I actually grew up a Tigers fan. So I grew up in Findlay, Ohio, which is about an hour and a half south of Detroit, about 3 hours north of Cincinnati, and 2.5 hours west of Cleveland. So you can imagine kind of a hodgepodge of favorite sports teams. There's no NFL team. We had Lions fans, we had Browns fans, we had Bengals fans, Buckeyes fans, but we're actually closer to Ann Arbor and the Big House, Michigan Wolverines. But for the most part, most folks there were Buckeyes fans. But growing up, like I said, I was a Tigers fan, and that all changed when they built Comerica Park. I remember walking in there for the first time, and I'm a traditionalist when it comes to baseball. I love the old stadiums, the feel. I know, like Wrigley Field, for example, it's old, it's got obstructed views, but I still love going to the games there and run that risk of maybe getting an obstructed view seat. But I remember walking into Comerica for the first time. There was a merry-go-round in the concourse. I'm like, merry-go-round at baseball stadiums doesn't make sense. And just a year later or so, I went to Wrigley for the first time. I remember walking up the steps, kind of coming up to that ground level, field level, and looking out at Wrigley Field for the first time, and remembering and realizing the history of the players who had played at Wrigley Field, the smell of the grass, the scoreboard with the man in the scoreboard turning the numbers or changing the numbers by hand, and just fell in love with that ballpark and been a Cubs fan ever since. So here is to baseball coming back. I'm looking forward to it. Tonight I will be smoking the Davidoff Late Hour cigar. So I just got turned on to Davidoff cigars really within the last month, and very specifically to this Davidoff Late Hour within the last couple of weeks. My wife and I, the family, were on vacation. We spent some time down in Florida, around Dustin, Florida, and one of those afternoon rain showers. Here it comes. We run off the beach, get back in the hotel room. Kids are exhausted, sunburned, tired, and so we left them in the room. We allowed them to get a little rest time, and we went to a local cigar shop where the tobacconist could not stop recommending the cigar. And this cigar was fantastic. My wife and I sat there for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, smoking the Late Hour Robusto, and haven't looked back. This is the fourth one that I've had in the last 2 weeks. I'm fortunate enough to be able to get some really good cigars, and I really enjoy this Late Hour cigar. But you go back to baseball, I can remember in Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, when they were chasing each other for the home run derby. I had the opportunity to see Sammy Sosa hit a home run in Detroit, so I was super excited about that. It was June. It was the month when he set the record. I think he hit 20 home runs that month. I got to see one of them, so consider myself pretty fortunate for that. But throughout that year, my girlfriend, now wife, the Gold Coast _Goddess1 on Instagram, we traveled around to watch Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire try to battle against each other, try to hit home runs. And so we saw Sammy Sosa in Detroit. We went to Cincinnati to see both Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, the Cubs and the Cardinals. But then the final home weekend for the Chicago Cubs, my wife and I had the opportunity to come to Chicago, and it was one of those crazy last-minute stories. So I worked second shift. I got off about 9 o'clock on a Friday, jumped in the car, we drove straight to Chicago, where we spent the night on the sidewalk. We were the second couple to get in line to buy tickets that they had reserved as day of game only tickets, and we were able to buy those tickets. We got to see Saturday's game as well as Sunday's game, so super exciting. Unfortunately, neither of the guys hit a home run that year or in that series, but we still we still had a blast. And one final baseball story, and I'll let you guys go and enjoy your cigars and whiskey tonight. The Cubs, like I said, being near and dear to my heart, is the first game I ever took my oldest son to. I remember he was 6 years old, about 2006, the summer of 2006, and bought tickets on Craigslist. First thing I ever bought on Craigslist were Cubs tickets, and so I run home, I pick him up after work, and we drive to Chicago, we get our hotel, and I've got to meet the guy on the street corner down by a local bar down around Wrigley Field. But we got our tickets, thankfully. Fingers were crossed, but thankfully they turned out to be legit, and we were able to go and watch Hunter Pence and the Houston Astros absolutely destroy the Cubs. I think the final score was 6-1. And Hunter Pence, who I think went on to win Rookie of the Year that year, had a hand in every run, either scored the run or had the RBI. He just single-handedly destroyed the Cubs that game. I'll never forget that. But, you know, it was an awesome memory for my son and I to be able to come to Chicago and hang out and spend some time at Wrigley Field. And had the privilege and the pleasure to go back multiple times, but maybe not this year in the midst of this pandemic. But what I do know is that I was sitting at home, drinking bleacher bum, wishing I was sitting there in the bleachers at Wrigley. Cheers, everybody. Stay smoky, my friends.